before Joellen starts, there's several things up here. Joellen brought a host of material that you...
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is wonderful. And again, happy Earth Day. Fred hit the nail on the head. Perfect nail on the head. Perfect time to talk about our water quality here in Lebanon County. Knows what body of water in Lebanon County serves as a source of our drinking water? Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. You get your choice of an Eels book or a Eels and Bank Barnes book. EELS stands for Envisioning an Environmental Legacy for the Swatara. And who knows what body of water the Swatara flows into? Wait. Raise your hand. No, wait, you already got one. We don't want to get you a chance. Let's give somebody else a chance. Somebody else raise your hand. Where does the Swatara flow to? Yes.
Chesapeake.
Before it gets there.
Eventually.
Hands up. Okay, ma'am. Which one would you like?
What was the answer?
The Susquehanna River. Oh, yes. Okay, now you got to put your hand up.
You must have been a teacher.
Just in Sunday school. What body of water does the Susquehanna River flow into?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Okay, you get a prize. Raise your hand, and I'll tell you higher or lower.
55 miles.
Higher. Anybody else?
85.
No. 85, a little bit higher.
135.
Lower.
125.
Lower. 100, lower. So you're between 85 and 100.
90.
Who said 90? I don't know. She's pretty smart. I guess I have to give her a matching set there. I have two books left. They're both EELS books. So let me think of another question. Who knows what Swatara means? Who knows their history? Who knows what Swatara means? Sir, where we feed on eels. The American eel used to come up the Swatara and, have its babies and go back to the Sargasso Sea and lay some more eggs, and the babies would hatch and they would come back to their home point, and the Swatara had eels. And of course, as we know, as the dams were built, the eel passages became less. And so therefore, there are still a few eels around. But guess how they get here? If you can get this answer right, then I'll give you a book. How can the eels get here if they can't migrate? Even though they can swiggle on the land a little bit, like after rain and the grass is good enough, they can swiggle and get around a low-head dam, but not these 100-foot dams. So what would be a way that an eel could get here? That's fish ladders is a good answer. How about you? Birds. Birds, right. On duck's feet and geese feet. And I think, what was the Swatara originally? A creek or a river?
That's your...
Anybody? Two answers. Yes, you have a 50% chance of getting right. A river. You got a book. Okay. Now, I say that because the Swatara Watershed Association has proposed. I mean, we see Swatara Creek on maps and signs, but when you do, if you use the internet, do a Google search. Google has a project where they scan all these old books because they're falling apart, and we don't want to lose that history and that knowledge. So they're preserving it electronically, and they're scanning all these books. So do a Google search on Swatara River, and you will find books from the 17 and 1800s that call the Swatara a river. Case closed, it's Swatara River. But somehow, somebody along the line is Swatara Creek. And it gets very confusing if you look at the whole watershed. Because in the north, we have the upper Little Swatara, the lower Little Swatara. You get into Lebanon County, and you have the Little Swatara, and you have the Swatara. And if you don't know
one Swatara from another.
Exactly. It gets very confusing. So if you designated the main stem as the river, wouldn't it make it easier to know that that's the receiving body of water of all these Swataras? And on top of that, it serves as a dividing line between municipalities like Union and Swatara, or North Anvil and East Hanover, and on down the line when you get to Dauphin County, you have Royalton and Middleton boroughs, right where you come out of TMI. That's where the Swatara ends up on the Susquehanna River. And the Swatara actually starts on top of a mountain in Foster Township. So you can see that 90-mile trek it makes. We're going to now go into my presentation. The Susquehanna River, which the Swatara flows into, is the largest tributary to the Chesapeake Bay, providing 90% of the fresh water in the upper bay and 50% of the total flow into the Chesapeake Bay. So we are all fairly important to the health and well-being of the Chesapeake Bay. Now, one of the simple, I like simple things because I'm not a scientist. I just love the water. I just do. I swim, I scuba dive, I fish. I love the water. So, one of the ways that's very simple to tell when the Chesapeake Bay is coming around is by the grass. If the grass is growing, there's places for the little fish to hide, and when the little fish are there, of course, then there's food for the big fish, and the chain goes up. And then we have our crabs and everything. But that means simply that the light from the sky, the sunshine, is getting to the bottom. So if the grass is growing, there's photosynthesis and all that taking place, and we have a healthier ecosystem. Now, when it comes to our drinking water, what's best? Groundwater or surface water? Wells or reservoirs? Which is best? It's an argument, isn't it? It really is, because I think about this a lot, and I know that many of us each had our own private well. Well, because we had our sewage systems nearby, our wells got contaminated. And boom, they said, the answer is public water supply. So we had lots of dams. Well, we just talked about how the dams block the fish passage. And some of the things that I've learned over the years are that underneath us is called an aquifer. It's like a lake underground, and it runs from Maine to Georgia. It's called the Mock-Chunk Aquifer. And when you have, there's so much. If you have pumping of the water out from a well, let's say a lot of water, the earth crust floats on that water. When that water table drops, guess what? The ground can drop. And you end up with sinkholes, like in Palmyra, there on 422, you've all heard of that. And when you have a sinkhole left open, the surface water, if you have oil on, a little bit of oil can pollute an awful lot of water, gets into that sinkhole, goes down, and guess what? Our aquifer can become contaminated. So it's very tricky. We also have storage tank leaks. My goodness, flowing underground. Now, in case I didn't say this before, normally underground water, and I say normally, there's exceptions to every rule, normally the water on the surface will go downstream because, High Point, Mountain in Foster Township, Low Point, Milltown, it goes downhill, it follows gravity. Normally, underground, the water flows in the same direction as the surface water. Because as you have the mountains, go up, when the earth was forming, it kind of like this, and then the water underground kind of follows the same way. So the water to my east was flowing towards my property. On our property, so we don't have all that stormwater runoff. Now you see these big, I can remember Phil Feather. Do y'all know Phil Feather? He was a former commissioner. And he said they used to call him Dry Dam Phil. Because he talked about these great big, and we ended up having holders for stormwater. And a lot of places you'll see a big dry dam out in front, basically. So when the stormwater comes in, it can hold it and release it slower. Well, that's one way, but there's some other ways that you can do it too. They have a porous pavement now. And that porous pavement you can get in cement or macadam. And the water can actually infiltrate that and soak into the ground on your site without just running off. Because most times on roads, it just runs off. But porous pavement is great because it lets the recharge happen on your property instead of creating a problem for your neighbor. Because one of the things you can do is install a rain barrel or a cistern of some sort, collect the water from the roof, like your grandpa used to do on the farm, or maybe you did it too, I don't know. But you have a rain spout come down into the cistern, and you store your own water. Then you can wash your car, and you can water your flowers, and put the water back into the ground on the property that it originally came down through the sky on. If that makes any sense to you, but there's ways to keep that stormwater. Because if we just keep developing and just keep putting more and more